The speaker of today is Dr. Federica Lowers. Federica is a part of the research support team in the eScience Center. She is a computational scientist, and her background is a theoretical computational physics of soft matters. Federica, let me know if you are ready. I give you the microphone.
Okay, I'm ready. Can you hear me?
Thanks. Yes, I can hear you. Please go on.
Okay. Good afternoon. The webinar today is teaching through UCloud. So the idea is to try to make to show some example and in order to highlight some features of UCloud which can be helpful to simplify and automatize the workflow of students and teachers. So the example will be both in terms of available resources for students and teachers, as well as ideal digital workspace. So as a first topic, I will focus more on the workflow of teacher, and in particular on the possibility of with the platform to prepare lectures and materials which can be used for courses. As you know, our App Store is full of applications which are divided in different categories like engineering, data analytics, social science, and so on. On UCloud, it's possible also to develop a notebook. Essentially, one can use, we have in the development section two labs like JupyterLab and RStudio, and actually notebooks are quite interesting for teaching because you can combine coding with text description and visualization, and on the top of that you can also transform the notebook in a live interactive presentation. So I will do the example for this with using JupyterLab. Actually, it's possible also with other tool, as I will mention. So I started an instance of JupyterLab, and what I did is selecting the notebook mode and installing an extension, which is Rise. So I can do that while submitting the job using the dependency parameter. So if I open now my interface and I open the notebook I prepare, so I can see that I have an additional button here, and this is to transform the notebook in a slideshow. So as you can see here, I can split my notebook with different fields, slide, and also skip some part, fragment and sub-slide, for example. And then when I'm ready, notebook can contain also interactive plots, for example. Then if I can run my notebook, and then I can decide to see how look my presentation. So for example, I can click here and I can see already the slide prepared. And what is nice is that the cell can be still, one can still run the cell, the code inside, and show to the class, for example, the plots with the interactive features, so changing aspect and size and so on. So here you can see that this widget allows to work during the presentation, for example. What I did on the top of that, I installed another extension, which is called Jupyter and the extension configurator, so that I can also change the aspect of those slides in terms of, for example, color, background, and size of the slide and so on. And this can be seen here. If I click, oops. Okay. If I click in NB extension, and then I can see that here are some parameters I can change. And for example, I can, let's say, change the background of the slide. And then if now I can probably close this and close this. If I open again, I closed too many windows anyway. If I open again my notebook, and I run the slideshow, I can see that I change the background of the slide. So this is a way to prepare, prepare the notebook and prepare the material you want to share with the class or present during class. There are other ways, like for other tools on UCloud, like for example, Voila. In the case of Voila, one have several options. For example, one can start Voila without specific options, just as a notebook, and I can show you here. So when I open the interface, one can see, and again, I can open my notebook. Yeah, one can see that now there is a button on the top, which is Voila, and I can transform my notebook in a presentation. And then, okay, what is nice is that at the meantime, I can work on the presentation and see how it appears as a slides. But I can use other options, like for example, I can show you here. So I can run Voila, and there are different options, as I said, and template one can use, and the template differ, for example, also on the way the material is organized. Like for example, grid stack is to organize the notebook materials in terms of tabs and boxes. So, but if one select the reveal option and select the name of the notebook you want to plot, then Voila can, then your slide presentation can be a standalone application, and you can even share the link with the students and use for the presentation. So for example, if I open the interface in my running Voila reveal, I can see my presentation, and then the slide, and I can change the way I can see the slide. And once again, I have interactive plot, which I can use. So I can change, for example, some parameters, and so can the student if I share with them some links. So in this case, on UCloud, one can prepare lecture and teaching materials, as I said. Before to change the topic, I want just to mention that we have another application, which is LibreOffice, which actually come from a use case where a user asked to be able to work with Words and Excel document and share this with, for example, students without the necessity to code and so on. And then this application I can show you here. You can have essentially different features here, like LibreOffice Writer, and you can, as I said, work with Excel files and so on. And you can also work on presentation. For example, student can work on presentation and upload images and so on. So this is another way to prepare presentation. Okay, so the second point I would like to discuss is the possibility of use project workspaces as spaces where to manage group of students and the material you want to share with them. For this, I will use a test user I have. And so we know that when we apply for a project, we ask for resources from computational and storage point of view, and then here can be selected the project. And in the same project, it is possible to add different members, and even one can add a long list, like would be in the case of students. And then it is possible to divide, for example, students in different groups and share with them different materials. So it's possible to create groups. And for example, in this group, which I call course 123, you can see that student user 2 and student user 3 can share this folder. And then you can change the permission of the folder as a read folder only, or they can write, or avoid that the group of a selected group of students can access when you are folder again, select a folder as I did and change. This is particularly useful if you want to put, for example, for classes of students, if you want to share slides, for example, or other kind of materials, or with PhD students is if, for example, you want to share also code and allow them to use the code and to use the resources you have available in the project. But as another example of when project workspaces can come in handy for students, I will discuss, I will pass to the third point of my webinar, where I want to show a possible way to somehow automatize a bit the process of assignment and grading. And this also comes from a use case where a user asked show us the workflow and asked to try to automatize the procedure. Okay, so this workflow can be developed with Jupyter and then NBGrader or GradeR, because JupyterLab, for example, is not while using JupyterLab, you are not constrained to a specific language. You can use also R or Julia, for example. But you can also implement this workflow with RStudio and GradeR. So in my project workspace, as I said, I created two folders. One is course 123, which I use to work to my assignment, the preparation of the assignment for the student. And then here I have a source directory where I put the assignment, the test I want to give to the students. So when I run, once again, Jupyter Notebook with NBGrader, so installing NBGrader, I can show you, it's already running. So you can see that here appear two additional fields, which are form grader and assignment. And in particular, when I click form grader, provide I specify the path of the folder I want to use, I can see that already the assignment will appear in my interfaces. So I can still work on this assignment. I can open my notebook and I can work, I can change things directly here. And you can see there are some fields, for example, that you don't want to show to the students and that have the solution, for example. So then when I'm happy with my notebook, I can go back to Form Grader, and then I decide, I can decide for a deadline, of course, of my exam, and I can generate the version for the students. So the version of the students will go in a release folder in my course 123 folder, but I can also change the directory for the release content, and yeah, here it is, and use the release button and put the file, for example, in this student 123 folder, which I shared with the students. So all the students can take the assignment and solve. And they can solve in the project, within the project. So then the assignment will be in the member folders. Or they can download the folder depending on the permission also, which I gave to the folder, and solve the notebook, solve the assignment. So then once I did this, I need to collect all the assignment, and there will be a folder which I need to call submitted, and now I will do manually because there is no students actually which solve the problem. So I will put an assignment in the right folder. Yeah. Yeah, for example, and I will put in my submitted folder user 1, because it's the student which solve. So hopefully at a certain point I will have a number here of submissions, and I can go to this submission and look the test, and auto grade the test if there are fields for which I can do that, or add also manual grading directly on the, so it will appear because I put some questions in the notebook, so cannot be auto graded. And then you can enter in the notebook and finish the grading in the case if necessary. Okay, now it's building the directory. It's taking a bit of time. But what will happen is that a folder called, okay, so that's done. And I can generate the feedback when I'm happy with the grading. So now if I go back to my file, I can see that in my course, I have 2 additional folders which are auto-graded and feedback. And for example, if I open feedback folder and for user 1, I can see that I will see the resume of the scoring of the student, and then there will be an evaluation through the notebook. So in this way, it's possible somehow to prepare the exam, to make, to share with the student the exam inside the project space, and then automatize somehow the procedure of grading and so on, because everything is ready in the interface. And then we need to send the feedback to the students. So as I said, this can be done also with RStudio. And the extension is a bit different, is Gradar. And there are a lot of tuning that is still possible because a lot of configuration about root directory and so on can be done through the nbgrader config file. One can create his own nbgrader config file and then upload the file, and while installing LibreOffice, it will be read. So then, yeah. So this was more focused on the teacher workflow. So now I want to discuss a bit, highlight a bit some software, which is some of the software which is available on UCloud. And okay, there are general advantages in using software on UCloud, which are the fact that students don't have to install by themselves the software, which in some cases, I can mention here Quantum Espresso Siesta, is quite demanding. The software is well maintained and updated, and also from the point of view of the teacher, you know exactly which version the class is using. So everybody is using the same version, and while preparing exercises and correcting problems, you know exactly the version you are using, so it's easier. There are different kind of software on cloud. I mentioned here some scientific software, like for example, LAMPS. LAMPS is a software for molecular dynamics simulation, and is you can run in batch mode. So essentially, you have a mask on your cloud. I can show you. It is in the applied science category. So when I open LAMPS and I run the application, I can simply, using the mask, and put an input folder, an input file, which can be an input folder. And the input file can be given, for example, from the teacher, and then the students simply change some parameters and don't have to code a lot. And then running the program, they can afterwards see, for example, the results. I can show an example. So in this version, for example, there is also the possibility of producing images and movies. So, for example, a student can follow the evolution of the system with the time. So, and after the program run, they can soon see how the system evolved from the beginning to the end. So, this is a phase separation system. So, okay, then this is the way, and actually with LAMPS, it's also possible to start the application in such a way to use the terminal and to submit all the commands from the terminal. So this is also a possibility for more advanced, for a more advanced use somehow. So another application which I want to mention is GROMACS. And in this case, for example, the application starts as a terminal. So you have to open an interface, and you can use different image sections, for example, and it's quite advanced and optimized also for using, for example, with GPU. So you open the terminal and you can code inside the terminal and use GROMACS. But there are another kind of software, which are like, for example, Quantum Espresso, Siesta, or NetLogo, which is actually not only scientific software. And in this case, the implementation is done in a virtual desktop environment. This means that when we start the application, I can show you, for example, Siesta. Okay. Oh, sorry. Yeah, here. When we open the interface, I will be in a Ubuntu environment. That means that not only you can run Siesta, but you can, to do this, you can open a terminal, and in this case, you even have some example already inside, which the student can use, but you can also use browser and other features. So the students are really in a Linux environment. So this is one case, and then and then Quantum Espresso is implemented as well as a virtual desktop environment. And then I can show another case. Analytic without coding. And for this, I mean softwares which are available on UCloud and which can be used, as I said, they are quite advanced application, but one can use also in this case without coding. So somehow teachers and students can be more focused on the learning of concept and models more than on the syntax of programming and coding. So, and for this, yeah, one example was Netlog. Now we can try with KNIME. Okay. Yeah, I don't know. It seems there are problems with the internet connection, unfortunately, because it usually was starting super fast, and I don't know now what's happening. Okay, yeah, here we are. So this is KNIME, so which is a platform for data science with a very intuitive interface and hundreds of ready-to-use workflow, which go from machine learning to data visualization, etc. So one can, for example, from here, download some examples. Yeah, no, okay. I think there are some problems with the connection. Okay, we can find some example also here. And yeah, so I can select the one to show how it works. Okay, so in this case, one can build a workflow and see how the workflow run. And is made from nodes. Every square of this is a node. And so one can build also can add nodes to the, here are all a list of nodes that one can add in the workflow. And then when it's ready, and every node somehow represent a part of the workflow, like loading data, split data, perform clustering and visualization. And then once the workflow is built and you really can drive, I can show you, for example, one can drive some nodes inside the workflow. So, and connect to the rest of the workflow. One can simply run the workflow, and then we can, for example, visualize the results. So it's quite intuitive in the sense that it can be, one can program a lot on this, can be quite advanced, but students can select a lot of workflow. And yeah, as I said, focus more on the concept than on the language, programming language, for example. And selecting every node, you can see that there are also an explanation, so it's quite useful. And then another possibility in this context, I can close this now, is there are other software we implemented with the same idea. For example, I can briefly show Articulator, which is a software used for creating, for example, Dash very easily. So also in this case, one can simply draw components and create a dashboard. And essentially, at the beginning, one can, for example, upload the file. which are essentially data, like I'm doing. And then you can start to build this dashboard. And there are a lot of examples. So, but it's quite intuitive because one simply can draw elements and build the dashboard with this, for example, yeah, really from the graphical point of view. So for example, here I can create a kind of donut, and yeah, and one can change the legend and can add, for example, the links, because we had a file of links also, and so on, and build the chart. And then the chart can be saved between our charts, but can be also, we can find here, and can be also downloaded in the computer and exported in different form, like an images or HTML or a Articulator template that can be used again. So it can be useful for students to show their data or analysis. And yeah, in this case, specifically, you can upload and download file on the computer. So you can use then application like, for example, AirSync on UCloud to synchronize your local folder with the folder on UCloud if you want to share in your project, for example. So, and then last, we are implementing, actually, we already have some development version, other software like Superset and QueryBook. Superset is a data exploration and visualization platform for big data, and QueryBook also for create data analysis and visualization, organize queries, and so on. And also deal with big data is a development environment, essentially. But also in this case, they are quite advanced, but can be used from students to create visualization for their data, for example. And I want super fast, because the time is finished, to show Superset here. Okay, so I uploaded some examples. So in Superset, you can see there are, if you load the example of the application, there are a lot of data set. You can just, as example, to practice, and then charts you can see, and you can even modify by yourself in order to change the data that you can see. Something maybe nicer is, I don't know, this. So you can change parameters here, like for example, I can change, let's say, the row limit and run the query. And when I'm happy and I modify my chart, I can even save in a dashboard that, for example, I already made. So I can add some charts very easily to my dashboard. So this is a dashboard already made, and you can see that I add this part. Or one can build a dashboard from scratch. You can read the structure. You can, I don't know, add the component like the header, or then a divider, and then some row here, and then you can split in column, and then you can add charts that you do before. So you prepare first the chart, and then you can add it to the application, and then in the end you save the dashboard you want to add. And in this case, one can add databases which can run on UCloud, and or the application have the opportunity to start a Postgres service. So this is more or less all I want to say. So, and I was just to remind our web page, where you can find our contact and the services we provide. And I want also to remind you that a lot of information on the software I discuss you can find in the documentation, and where in the app index you have all the application, and for example for GROMAX you can see all the some information, at least the more important, and sometimes also tips to use all this software. Thank you.